Hey there, it's Nicole here with Job Hunt Solutions, and today's video we're going to talk about the interview. And now, as you know, I've been in recruitment since 1997, both as a corporate recruiter and earlier in my career I was a recruiter in recruitment agencies. So I've seen a lot when it comes to the interview. I've interviewed tons of people, thousands and thousands of people. So here are some, some of my tips for you. So the first one is prepare, prepare, prepare. I can't stress this enough. It really does involve a lot. So with your preparation, the first prepare would be with regard to your research. You have to do a ton of research on a company, and it's not just about researching the organization itself and understanding the company's mission, vision, and values, but also depending on the role you're applying for. So for somebody, as an example, who would be a senior level accountant, you may want to do a deep dive into the company's financial statements. You can usually get that information if they're publicly traded by the company's annual reports. Sometimes there's an investor relations page on a company website. It gives a little bit of insight in terms of the financial health of the organization. It's always useful to know anyway, if you're going to be looking for a job at the organization, how financially secure they are, to make sure that they can actually give you a paycheck, and that they will be around for a while. So just some different research things, but you don't have to go into the deep financial dive if you're not on the accounting side of things, or if the numbers are a bit intimidating. I totally get it. There's still Google searches that you can do, of course, to look for news articles. You can also have a Google alert set on the organization. So anytime that they appear in the news or in a Google feed, then you'll get notified of that. The two other areas where I think would be great places to research are Glassdoor. They just have so much information on the Glassdoor website, especially when it comes to what the interview process was like for other people, and people really give their ratings and feedback. Another area, of course, are the people you know. You don't know who might have actually worked at the organization, friends of friends who currently work there, that sort of thing. Gives you a great deal of insight in terms of what the company is like. Especially when it comes to the second part of research, which is understanding the corporate culture. The corporate culture piece is vastly important. First of all, it's great to know what the culture is to see if it would be a fit for you. As much as we all want to focus on wanting a company to like us, we want to make sure that this is a company that we can work at, especially if you're going to be spending the majority of your time at work. You want to make sure that this is a culture that you can really see yourself spending 40 hours a week in. So the other part around culture is to understand how to prepare yourself in terms of your dress code for the interview itself. Typical benchmark would be to wear business attire. For a man, that means a suit. For a woman, it could mean a suit or a dress, or a combination of a top and pants, or a top and skirt. There's all kinds of combinations there. I'll get into that in a minute. For some organizations, for example, Amazon.com, their corporate culture is very casual. If somebody came wearing a business suit, they would probably question the person's judgment, fit, and ability to do the research on the organization, because they would be looking for somebody to come in with a pair of jeans and look like the people that are interviewing them. So that's really important. Other people have asked me about things like piercings or tattoos. Again, do your research on the corporate culture, cover up as much as you can where appropriate, and in other areas, in other instances, it may be perfectly fine and embraced that you have that sort of creativity, especially if it's a super creative type of a role or environment. As far as sort of a side note for dress code for women, this is one thing that can definitely make or break you. You know, the first couple of seconds within that a company gets to meet with you is really critical. It's that first impression that can be very difficult to change. So For women, I would suggest that if you must wear a dress or a skirt, make sure it is no shorter than the top of your knees. I can't stress that enough. Mini skirts really do not leave a good impression, and it really does have the interviewer questioning your judgment. So just being a little bit more erring on the side of caution and being a little bit more conservative is always going to be better as a quick benchmark for you. Now, when it comes to the research again, the third element of research would be to know where the company is located. I know, of course you're going to know where the company is located, right? Like that seems silly not to know that. But it's more than just about where the company is located. It's really understanding and knowing how long is it going to take for you to get there. It's okay to be 10 minutes early for an interview. It's never okay to be 10 seconds late. That really does not fly well for a lot of people who are interviewing. They're on a tight schedule, and for somebody to be late, it really does show how prepared a person might be. And also, for people who are late to an interview, it gives the interviewer the impression that your time is more important than my time, and that's never cool. So how do you ensure that you are going to be on time for your interview or a few minutes early? Do a dry run. That's usually the easiest way to go about it. Depending on the time of your interview, traffic patterns can change if you're driving. If you're unfamiliar with the area and the parking situation, you don't know where you might end up parking within the company's parking lot, or if you have to do street parking and how far away you might be. So the extra time that you might need to get from your car to the location itself. Also, transit. If you're on public transit, I live in Toronto, so I'm always on public transit. And Toronto Transit, they do a fantastic job until something happens. We had a power grid go down here earlier this week, and so there was no subway service downtown during rush hour and for the entire morning earlier this week. So that would be a real bummer for anybody who was trying to get to an interview and running late. So really making sure you have that extra time calculated into your commute to the interview is vastly important. And again, a dry run can always help with that. The second prepare is read your resume. I know that sounds kind of silly to read your own resume, but honestly, by reading through your resume and think about your bests and worsts, some people might call them your war stories. So really, as you're going through your resume, each role that you've had, think of, what was your biggest accomplishment and what's a great achievement that you can highlight. What is maybe a failure that you would have had that you've overcome, and how are you able to work through that great underdog story. Great team members, terrible team members, things that you've done to work through some of these issues. Those kinds of questions you will be asked. Tell me about a time when. These war stories will help you answer those questions. It'll help you be prepared. So if an interviewer asks you a question and you think, oh goodness, I've already given my best example for a victory, you'll have a couple of different stories that you'll be able to tell, depending, of course, on the length of your resume and how many stories you can think of. So reading through your resume, being familiar with that. If an interviewer asks you any questions about your resume in particular, or as you're preparing some of your war stories, you'll have a few sort of in your back pocket that you can share in case a question comes up. You really don't want to be thrown. That can just increase your nervousness in an interview. Okay, so now you're dressed for success. You're ready to go. When you're getting into the interview, we want to make sure smells. We've got to be cautious of smells. Again, I've interviewed thousands of people, and there have been some very uncomfortable moments. When it comes to things, body odor, just take a shower before you go in. That would be the best, please. And all of that kind of good stuff. But also, just if somebody smokes, I understand that it can be a very emotionally charged environment. People are very nervous going in, but just don't smoke. Have a package of cigarettes before you go in. Just don't smoke at all before you go into your interview. It really does create quite an odor within a closed, small interview room. It's very unpleasant for the interviewers. Cologne is always good, just a light bit of cologne or perfume. It's always nice. Just make sure you don't put too much of it on. Again, in a small enclosed space, those smells can really become, just take over the room and become very much a distraction away from you and onto what you smell like. So we really don't want that to happen. Now, when it comes to, breath and stuff like that, coffee breath, whatever, we want to be careful of that. Of course, having a mint is always a good idea. But gum, so that's my next point, is gum. Just don't. Just don't chew gum in your interview. And if you forget that you have gum in your mouth, excuse yourself discreetly, and hopefully there's a trash can or someplace where you can get rid of your gum. Just don't. Next one, language. So my next tip is language. I know that it's not about being the super verbose and being able to use those $64,000 words. It's about not using foul language. So no F-bombs in your interview. Just really try to keep the profanities outside of the interview room, even if the interviewer swears. Sometimes interviewers do this. I know I've tried myself to bait people into, letting their guard down and seeing if they would swear in an interview. It's a silly trick, but and I'm guilty of doing it. And finally, listen to the question and answer the question. I know that all sounds really patronizing. I don't mean it to sound that way, but seriously, listen to the question and answer what is being asked. And if you're not sure, if it's a little bit unclear, it's okay to ask for clarification. And it's also okay to stop for a second and just, maybe collect your thoughts if it's something that you're not really familiar with being asked. That's cool, but make sure you're answering the question itself. Again, in my experience with interviewing people, I've asked people questions and they've given me all kinds of wonderful information and didn't actually answer the question I was asking. So that can be really distracting as well, and then you have to re-ask the question because you're not getting the answer. It makes the interviewer actually question your listening abilities. So those are all of my tips. I will have them written down below. You can also find my website down below in the description, so you can come to my website anytime. You'll find this video and my blog. If you like my videos, please subscribe. Hit the subscribe button there. Also, I want to make this super collaborative, so if you have any comments or thoughts or recommendations for other videos or would like to collaborate with me on a video, I would love to hear from you. So please put your comments in the comment section below. You can also send me an email or link with me on LinkedIn or whatever works for you. I would love to hear from you. So until next time, happy hunting.